Welcome to Making Sense of AI Together, the podcast that explores how artificial intelligence is reshaping our everyday lives. I'm Claudine Wong, journalist and news anchor.
And I'm Lisa Bernard, a former TV journalist, now creating AI content on my Instagram channel, Demystify AI. Each week, we break down the buzz, cut through the hype, and help you make sense.
That's how the law is laid out. In a training model for AI, is the law laid out that if you use anyone's work to train an AI model, they should be compensated for that.
The law here is unclear. Until a few years ago, before generative AI, the law was pretty consistent that if you used computers to analyze lots of people's work, then that was okay. What you could do was make new copies of it. So search engines were okay. They had to crawl and analyze lots of web pages to make an index of them. Plagiarism detection software was okay because it's not writing term papers to compete with students. It's detecting whether they're using somebody else's ideas. They were doing all these research projects that involved training AIs on lots of copyright works. That's generally considered fine. What changed is that with generative AI going mainstream, now it can produce new works that look creative in the same way that humans' works are. And those outputs are big business. So you have outputs that are the same kinds of things it was trained on. Songs, you get songs out, and you have enormous amounts of money flowing in over it. Those two factors might make a difference in whether this qualifies as fair use under copyright law. And there are about 50 lawsuits across the US right now testing out whether it does.
So those 50 lawsuits will tell us a lot, I guess, going forward, because there's so many subtle ways that it can create something that appears unique, but actually was trained on other images or on other music or likenesses. And then the question is, are people going to bother and take the time and get a lawyer and sue? And then who do they sue, right? Is it OpenAI? Is it along the way when it's being trained? So I guess these 50 lawsuits are pioneering for us, because I imagine a lot of people just let it go. They don't know what recourse they have. Is that true? Is that what, the little guy who sees their image copied doesn't even have recourse at this point?
It's not really feasible for most individuals to sue these big AI companies for themselves. So instead, you see two kinds of things. One of them is that major publishers are suing. So the New York Times is suing OpenAI and Microsoft. You have movie studios, you have book publishers, music labels, people who own a lot of copyrights and can claim to act on behalf of all of them. And then you also have some class action lawsuits representing classes of book authors or visual artists whose works have been used. And the idea with a class action is that everybody represented gets to be part of it, and they get a payout collectively if the case succeeds.
Are these also foundational? Like, we have to wait to see how these 50 lawsuits do so we kind of know which direction the law seems to be going and which way the courts seem to say this is how we're interpreting the law when it comes to these types of lawsuits? I mean, obviously it won't stop lawsuits from being filed regardless. That's just kind of seems to be what we do. But foundationally, as we're looking at there's always legal precedent in determining whether or not, it might have standing or might have a chance to go forward. Are we watching these 50 very carefully to say this might set up for what we believe to be the types of cases that will be successful moving forward?
Yeah, this is how the American legal system works. It develops precedents one case at a time. Having 50 cases at once is actually much faster development than most areas of law go through. You're teaching copyright, you go years between major precedents on a given issue. And we could have a dozen really significant decisions on generative AI and copyright in the next year.
So let's talk about some of the specific examples. I remember during the last election, a deep fake, which is, what we're calling them these days, a deep fake of Taylor Swift endorsing Donald Trump was posted. It was not her. It was not her political opinion. And then she scrambled actually to endorse Kamala Harris. What did that sort of show us? And were there repercussions from that? Or is it something we all have to get used to? How do we discern if it's a deep fake or not? And, is that a case that is being considered? Is this sort of political, these ads that do not properly represent the person? What, if anything, can those people do, to stop their likeness being abused that way?
So what's happened in the last few years is the technology to create really convincing simulations of actual people has gone from being something that takes one person many hours to do in a painstaking way to something that you can get downloadable software and prompt it with some samples of the person and get a surprisingly good output that would fool some people on a casual inspection. So it's popped up in all kinds of places, and we've actually seen really different responses from the legal system to different kinds of deepfakes. So cases of commercial endorsements where they're making fake people to sell products, that's pretty easily covered under existing law. That's a case where you can sue for right of publicity or false advertising and go after them. The hard part is not the deep fakes, it's just catching them before they take their money from the ads and disappear. The political figures, like the ones you mentioned, are actually having a much harder time of it because some states have passed anti-deepfake laws that target false political endorsements. But a lot of those laws that have been litigated have been held unconstitutional because it's possible to create a deepfake and use it in a way that's not misleading or doesn't cause the kinds of harms that the legal system is concerned with, because you want to carve out First Amendment protections for political speech. So somebody who makes a deepfake of their opponent doing backflips, like this is, the piece of gymnastics is making a rhetorical point, not a serious one. And the laws haven't been narrowly drafted enough so far to catch only the people who are using them in really deceptive ways.
So
the third place where we're seeing a ton of...
No, go ahead.
The third place where we're seeing a lot of legal action on deepfakes is around pornographic deepfakes of private individuals, celebrities, and people that the people who are making these know. And this is what's really led to a whole rush of state legislation. The new federal No Fakes Act targets them too, basically really going after these intimate depictions of actual people. And so far, the indications are that that's the kind of thing the courts are going to be willing to give recourse against.
So are those solid now? Those laws, would you say, are solid with pornography?
I wouldn't say that they're solid yet, but the early indications seem to be that most state legislators have a strong sense that this ought to be illegal, and the people who are defending these laws in courts have been making pretty good argument rooted in existing precedents. So if I had to predict, I'd say it's going to be solid within a few years.
Do you think that's also because before even generative AI and all of these other new technologies, that was already existing as a battle being kind of waged in social media just in general? Like whether it was fake or not, people didn't like these images coming across without people's consent or permission or any of this type of media that people were putting out there. The public didn't like, and if it was out there without someone's permission, people seem to agree that shouldn't be happening. And so this is another level of that it not being real and not and also not being with someone's permission, but that seems to be a further advancement of something of a battle that had been currently waged, and then just another level of it.
That's absolutely right. That the people concerned about non-consensual pornography, where somebody shares intimate pictures because they were hacked or shared with them and they breached the expectation to be held privately. And so the backlash and activism around that provided a foundation that deepfakes fit into well. So I should have said the Federal Take It Down Act combines both one about intimate photos and deepfakes using very similar language because the harms from them can be very similar.
And what about the voice cloning scams? That's really scary because, we're starting to hear about stories where it sounds exactly like a child calling an elderly parent or a child calling a middle-aged parent saying they're kidnapped or saying they need money, and it sounds just like the voice of their loved one. Are there laws quickly in place for this, or what do we do about the voice cloning?
So the voice clones aren't illegal by themselves, but the scams they're used in are obviously criminal. And so that's straight up criminal fraud when you use a voice clone to get somebody to send you money because they think that their nephew is in jail.
So do you have a vision of the future, or how all of us who aren't legal professors and aren't, astute technologists would be able to identify? Is it watermarks? I don't know how you watermark a voice. What sort of things do you envision? And again, I know in your paper you talk about, again, this layering during the training. Is that how we can fight against this?
It's going to be very hard to prevent people from making deep fakes, audio clones, or other high quality media. Even if we regulate the big AI companies, the tools to do this are they're simple enough that you could run them on a laptop in many cases. So a lot of it has to do with either a society finding and prosecuting the people who are doing bad things with them, or as individuals protecting ourselves by looking for other sources of information that are harder to fake. So that somebody calls you claiming to be from a company, like obviously you want to call the number on their website. I shouldn't say obviously, these are security training. You call them, don't trust that they are who they say they are. And similarly, you need to have independent verification for people that who are contacting you through channels you not normally see them through.
Yeah,
And
we always
it's
say
going to be a really scary landscape online.
It really is, but I will say, and I mean, you started out as a computer programmer, so you know this. As a computer programmer, you were probably light years ahead of the people around you, who people were like, computers? I don't understand computers. And then AI, people are like, I don't get AI. I mean, as a society, the technology has always moved faster than I think a bulk of society, where everyone's just already trying to keep up. And I think the AI portion of this has moved at light speed compared to a lot of the other technological advances, because it's been so widely open to everyone that in so many different capacities, it's just kept going. And so whether it's these 50 lawsuits that are moving faster than most legal battles and legal precedents have been set, it's still, to me, from where I sit in a non-legal capacity, of course, and obviously, but molasses compared to how many other different issues are coming up on an hourly, daily, weekly basis because of how much is being generated and how quickly it's being generated. As you said, on someone's laptop, and someone else is figuring out how to do something else, and someone's created another program, and someone's downloading something else and figuring out something else. Does everything that you look at and the conversations you're having with technologists versus lawyers and the things that you're seeing make you more concerned about where we're headed, or less concerned?
I'm very concerned about AI's impacts, but honestly, the pace at which it's being adopted is actually a little reassuring, because it means we're not in this extended period where there are tools out there that are really dangerous and powerful that people don't know about. At least lots of the public is being exposed to ChatGPT and to AI generated imagery a lot. And people have already, they can recognize many AI generated images because of the particular visual styles they come in. People are getting immunized against some of the most surprising things it can do.
So if it, let's say it was more secretive, we might be fooled more. You think we're just
I think, yeah, absolutely.
But do you feel like our lawmakers are understand the urgency? I mean, not to get political, but Congress, and you said some state legislators, were optimistic with the pornography, but I know that the EU is further ahead of us with laws. What do you think about that? About how long it takes to pass a law in the U.S. and do you think they need to sort of be a little more urgent?
So I think they should be urgent about trying to understand these technologies and see the impact they're having. I don't think they should be urgent about trying to pass laws. One of the biggest
Okay.
dangers with a new technology is enacting a new law before it fully settles down.
Mm.
And if you do that, you could lock in place a technological understanding that just falls behind the times. It's in some ways it's good that we have a whole lot of lawsuits around AI going through the courts right now because they're more incremental. Courts make one decision, but another judge 2 months later could look and say, actually, that was a little bit wrong. I'm going to tweak this and fix it. And it's more of an ongoing learning process.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was going to ask, do you think that laws are the answer? I mean, there are a lot of different ways to handle this. I mean,
Right. The companies could be more forthcoming, maybe with what's AI and what they're training on.
but I guess the question is too, is copyright law outdated? Is it going to be able to stay up to date in order to provide the protections that it was created to provide?
I think copyright law is under bigger stress than at any time since it was invented following the creation of the printing press. That is, this is a change on the same scale, and the system that comes after copyright may be as different from copyright as copyright was from what came before. In terms of whether law in general can keep up, it always does. Law is what society does, the rules it makes for itself. The laws may look really different, but we'll have something.
Yeah. And if you could write something that would replace the copyright law that exists now, what would it be?
I have no idea.
Do you think it's a wait it out and see?
I mean, it's one of these things where you watch it and then patterns start to emerge. You look at the litigation against AI companies for training on people's copyrighted works. And one thing that a few judges so far have said is that they are inclined to treat the act of training itself as okay. That the process of making a model based upon lots of work to learn its patterns is okay. But you may have to pay attention to how you got those works. You have to legitimately buy copies of books or license data from places rather than just downloading lots of pirated scans. And they're also not saying that everything that the model outputs is okay. It's very possible people could make infringing outputs. There's a lawsuit by Warner Brothers against Midjourney for making images of the Joker and Scooby-Doo and lots of characters. And so they'll apply plenty of scrutiny to the outputs. And it's not really a categorical win for the AI companies or for copyright owners, but it's asking the right kinds of questions about what behaviors are better and what behaviors are worse.
So I had been focused on on artists and artists being compensated for their work, and then someone pushed back on me and said, "What about all the writers?" And it's a really good point. I mean, Shakespeare, how's Shakespeare going to be compensated now? But meanwhile, I'm sure lots of students in high school are typing in, write me, I don't know, something in the voice of Romeo, or write a poem, that sounds like Shakespeare. How would we compensate Shakespeare? So these are interesting questions, right? And medical journals, we are benefiting from the training on hundreds, decades of medical, outcomes, and then does someone need to be compensated that they wrote that paper that is now saving lives? How does that work?
We've always had a mix of different systems. Copyright has never been the exclusive way that people get paid. Shakespeare wrote plays before copyright. He made his living by making sure that they brought people in the gate to pay admission to watch. A different business model. And the medical research is funded by government grants and by philanthropy. We don't rely upon copyright in the paper describing it to make the research happen. It may have entirely different systems that support creativity and innovation that don't look like present day copyright.
True. And let me just ask you though, the actors' strike in Hollywood, that was about their likenesses being used without their permission, right? Was that a copyright argument?
It's at the place where copyright and right of publicity and labor law intersect. And they were very concerned that they would show up for work and get filmed at work, and then the studio would have a digital double of them. And like, okay, you've done one day of filming, that's enough. And we're going to have the double act in the rest of your scenes.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that a legitimate? I mean, a lot of AI always comes back to, I mean, it's copyright, but it's also digital replacement. I mean, everyone's worried about losing their jobs, and whether it's AI replacing writers or it's replacing us as body doubles. I mean, I've had a lot of people saying, yes, everyone's like, you don't need to do the news. We're going to have an AI news anchor pretty soon here. I'm like, I imagine someone will try it. I mean, I think there's the intersection of stealing people's work or just doing their work.
Yeah, and the actors were in an especially good position to object to it because it's really obvious if you have an actor and then an AI double trained on them, that the AI double is really doing this person's work and being them in place of them on the set. But all of us, I think, worry about a future in which journalists and authors and teachers just get replaced by AI in professional contexts. Because both we worry about, will it do as good a job as we do? Will it just smooth over things and cut corners and just produce an inferior product? And also, it's good for society to have people who pay attention to the truth, pay attention to learning, who have an aesthetic sense and spend time making things. And that's a better society than one in which we're all just mopping the floors of the server center.
Of the server center. What?
So true.
Let's not have that.
So true.
But I think it's what you said earlier, and we've talked to some guests too, who AI companies who have said that society has actually pushed back. They like AI, but they want AI where AI is, and they want people where people are, and they want to know where AI ends and people begin. That's and right. At least that's where people are now. Yeah. Who knows if they get more comfortable and then want AI wherever AI is, and maybe that grows, but for now people still want people, which is a good thing. We'll take that for as long as that lasts. Well, James, it's a great conversation. It leads you with endless work, I imagine.
That's right. You'll be busy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, until the AI replaces me completely, I will have plenty to pay attention to and work on.
Excellent.
Plenty of people calling you saying, what do we do now? Yeah. And what do we do next?
Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. It's super interesting and really, really valuable. Yeah. Because this is uncharted territory. So thank you so much.
Thank you. James, really, before you go, we do want to ask you, how often do you use AI in your life? I see books behind you, the old school. Rarely, huh? You talk about it, you look at it, you examine it, and then you curl up in a chair and read a good book and turn off all electronic media?
Not quite. I'm a computer addict. But okay. I have used generative AI to write a couple of scripts to make my professional life easier. The kind of thing like reformatting a bunch of spreadsheets in a more readable format. It's really great for kicking out a short program to do something that would have taken me 40 minutes to write. But for writing, for visual art, for anything creative like that, I just don't see the appeal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love it too.
All right. James Germelman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so
Cornell
much.
law professor, staying very, very busy these days. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Have a great one. Go rewrite that copyright law.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And we will see you next time here on Making Sense of AI Together.
See you. Have a great week.